Welcome to your real estate review with Alan Canis of Engel and Volker's Silicon Valley, your weekly getaway to the pulsating heart of the global real estate market. Join us as we bring you exclusive interviews with top producing real estate agents from around the globe. Whether you're a buyer, a seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, this is your insider look into the pros, cons, and the captivating allure of the world's most sought after locations. Let's discover where your next dream home awaits. Buckle up for a real estate journey like no other. This is your real estate review with Alan Canis of Engel and Volker's Silicon Valley. Welcome to your real estate review with Alan Canis. That's me of Engel and Volker's Silicon Valley. I want to welcome a very good friend of mine, Yasmin Saad of Collier County of Naples, Florida. Yasmin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me here, Alan. It's so good to see you again. It's been a minute, and I'm so happy that we get to spend this time together.
I am too. And I know people are going to be so excited to watch this and see what Collier County is all about. So we're going to dive right in. And would you mind telling us a little bit about what you did before real estate? What was the exciting job?
Well, I mean, it sounds more exciting than I think it really is.
It does to me.
So my previous career, my previous life was in broadcast journalism. I was in television news, and I worked at the local ABC affiliate in Omaha, Nebraska. And I had a great time there. I did literally absolutely every single thing. I mean, I started as an unpaid intern and worked all the way up. And when I left, before coming into real estate, my last position was a producer for the morning show. And then I was also an on-air reporter.
Oh, wonderful. See, that to me is exciting.
Well, Alan, when I tell you what I made, it might sound a lot less exciting.
That I can understand. Please tell us, and this is where we can find out what you made. Please tell us how, when, and why you are in real estate.
Sure. So my mom and dad had actually moved to Naples, Florida. And it was a few years, I think before I came down, maybe a couple years, 2001, I think is when they moved here. And my mom had really just started her real estate career right before their move, actually in Omaha, and maybe worked 6 months. I was kind of gone at that point, doing my own thing. And so I'm not, really wasn't home, but then she moved to Naples with my dad. They moved here, and she really kicked off her real estate career and just dug in real deep. And she kept asking me oh, hey, do you want to come and work with me? I was like, no. I already lived in Florida once, and that is God's waiting room. I'm not coming back. So I mean, I literally was like, I'm just never living in Florida again, because a slight backstory to that is when I graduated high school, I actually went to the University of Miami in Coral Gables.
Okay.
And that was not the best time of my life, but then I had transferred to the University of Nebraska, which at Lincoln, which is what had kind of afforded me and allowed me the opportunity to dig in to the journalism while I was still in school. And so mom begged me, please come work with me. And I guess finally at some point we remember it slightly different. She says she threw in an Escalade. She's like, I'll buy you an Escalade. And I was like, I don't remember that being the moment that I was like, yes, I want to do real estate in Naples. But apparently she says that was the cincher on the deal. So I ended up actually training. I went to these, virtual phone, they were over the phone. So not, they weren't over the internet at that time, but classes to learn how to be a buyer's agent. And so I started doing that while I was still, a producer. And I remember taking those calls and doing that. And then July of 2003, I made the big jump from Omaha, Nebraska to Naples, Florida.
Wow.
And real estate. So I chose
That's a good story.
I chose this. Well, yeah.
So if you'll come and work with me in Northern California, Silicon Valley, I'll get you a Bentley Bentayga.
Oh, I mean, I am a car girl. So, I mean, we can talk cars. It's going to have to be the premium level.
So you've told us a little bit about your background in real estate. Could you tell us a little bit about your background in real estate specific to your experience with clients?
Sure, absolutely. So when I started as a buyer's agent. So it was a 6 month training program I took, and then I didn't quite think I got it, so I actually took it again. So I did a full year of training and really learning how to be a buyer's agent and how to communicate with people. It's a different language. Any profession that you're in, it's a different language, and so
Yeah.
learning that professional language and the language of sales. And I've spent more than 20 years now really studying people and personalities and how they think and why they think and how to say what you want to say. And so my experience with the clients really started out just calling on the phones, prospecting around our listings, looking for somebody that wanted to buy one of our properties. And kind of fun or funny, I don't know. I was calling for 6 months, Alan, and people were like, no, 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 hanging up, hanging up. But even funnier was how often people are like, is this a recording? I had to learn because my background was journalism. I had to learn to have imperfect language and actually add in ums and ahs and because people thought I was recording because I had my language patterns. You're on TV and you have one chance to say it, and you need to say it right. So
Yeah.
so I was calling for 6 months, and finally somebody's like, "Yes, I would like to see that." And I'm like, "Wait, what? What do I say?"
That deer in headlights, I get it.
Yeah, and then and then it really, I mean, I was very focused on the buyers and working with the buyers, and I very vividly remember then my first seller client that it was a little condo up in Estero. So it's Naples. Naples is what everybody like Naples, and Collier County mostly has Naples addresses, but then just north of us is Bonita Springs, and just north of that is Estero, and just south of us, but in Collier County, is Marco Island. And
Okay.
so just to give like a little bit of a lay of the land, but yeah, my first listing, I remember taking this little 2 bedroom condo up in Estero.
I remember going on my first listing presentation, and it kind of blew my mind because I went over the whole presentation, and the woman she says, I should have stopped you at the beginning. And I said, oh, really? She says, yeah, because I already knew I wanted to hire you when I made the phone call. I was like, really? What do I do now? I didn't know how to respond.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I mean, the first time I went on at the time, like what would have been considered like, a high end listing, I remember it was in the 700s. It might have been 799, but I don't remember the exact number. And I mean, I have my listing presentation. It's printed out. I have all my notes from our call from ahead of time. I have everything. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm reading the listing presentation to her. And I had practiced, but I'm reading it. But one of the things she had said to me is, I think I'm going to wait a couple of months, before I list the home. But, when you're early in the business, you go on every appointment, you do everything
Yeah.
you can to learn. And I literally read this whole thing to her, and I get to her and I say, well, I knew you were thinking you like just wanted to wait. So, like whatever. And she's like, well, can't I just sign with you now? I was like, oh, okay. I like that.
Those are the best.
I
But
know.
it kind of throws us off our game because we're like, whoa, what just happened? What are some of the unique features or attractions of Collier County that make it an appealing destination for people to relocate?
I know you're in California, so you're on the West Coast, but we're the
Yes.
other West Coast over here. We are, we're like West Coast, Best Coast. Because I'm on the West Coast of Florida. So we sit on the Gulf of Mexico. And one of the things that is so appealing, obviously, is just being on the water. It's incredibly outdoor lifestyle driven here. You are very It's very rare that you wouldn't see people like outside, whether they're walking or they're biking or they're doing some kind of outdoor sport, whether it be tennis, golf, where the pickleball national championships are here. People doing water sports, boating, fishing, paddleboarding. I mean, you name it. Our life is really driven to an outdoor lifestyle here, and that is the number one driving factor. And we get a lot of sunshine, like a lot of sunshine here, and to the point where you can ask any of the locals and anybody who's lived here for any like little bit of time. I was just talking to some friends. They moved here from Canada recently. And I was saying, like you get a cloudy day and it's kind of like, ooh, it's an anomaly. Like, oh, cloudy. What's this? And then, 2 days, you're like, okay. I was like, more than 2 days, everybody's miserable. The attitude, like you can really like but you can feel it. Like it's
Yeah.
a real thing.
It's a
And
downer.
it absolutely is. And so people in general here are very happy. They're very light. They're not really like carrying a lot of like weight or stress with them. And I think, from an attraction, there's the actual physical things to do. You can literally do any kind of outdoor sport that you want to do here, and of all ages. Like I have friends that are walking 18 holes of golf and they're in their 80s, and they're doing that
Wow.
2-3 times a week. That I have friends that are running marathons or cycling and doing all these things. So age is kind of like an interesting thing here too. You have really like no idea how old people are because they are so active. And then one of the other things that I just love, from a family standpoint, I mean, it's a really safe area to live. Collier County, like the crime rates are very low. But I love that we have incredible parks. Our park system is fantastic, and they'll have playgrounds and they have like splash pads or water parks. And I think that's just a really nice feature. You don't have to go too far. Not every park is like a really giant park, but there's a lot of neighborhood parks and that green space. It's very green here. We get a lot of rain, so we get that. And the other really cool, neat thing that I love is our public library system, which it's not just like libraries, but they have these great extended learning programs. So they'll bring in speaker series, or they might have some other kind of event, for continued adult learning. They have children's programs. I just think it's a neat place to live because it's very easy, but there's a
Yeah.
lot that you can be doing. The arts are grown dramatically. The Gulf Shore Playhouse just built this beautiful building. We have a new opera house here. Community theater's really big here. And so we have a lot of involvement in that.
Will
And
we see you in one of the productions?
you will see my son in one of the productions.
Ah,
And
great. Okay.
actually, my sister-in-law recently did a production at one of the community theaters as well. Both my kids have gotten involved in theater. It was almost a fluke. My son
Oh, fun.
volunteered backstage to get some high school volunteer credit for graduation, and another friend encouraged him to get on the stage, and here we are.
Oh,
And
that's
actually, this
wonderful.
week is a tech week, so we're kind of like, if anybody is not involved in theater, it's a lot of rehearsals, and it's just the week before the show goes live, and it's all encompassing.
That's wonderful. Well, and the fact that you're so involved makes it even more fun. Definitely.
I mean, I love living here. I love that we can go out the door. Like I go to the grocery store, I see people that I know. Just anywhere I go, I'm typically going to run into somebody, and it's just, it's really still has a very small town feel, even though it's grown so much.
The one thing I've been doing all of these podcasts, I don't even know how many we've done so far all over the world. And you're the first person to mention libraries because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a forgotten institution. And so the fact that that you still use them because everybody uses these.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, we still read here.
that's that's good to know.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. How would you describe the current real estate market in Collier County, and what trends should potential relocators be aware of?
I would say, gosh, if you are looking to buy into the Paradise Coast, really, there could not be a better time, honestly, to be a buyer in our marketplace. We've had some very interesting things happen, which a lot of the United States has seen, some trauma to the real estate market post COVID. One of the things I think is really important, I've been through 5 presidential election cycles. I've done this long enough. I've seen the down markets. I've seen up markets, and then we've seen unique COVID markets. So that, you add that in. But one of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is our market can be a bit segmented because it is very much so a resort market. We do have a primary home market, but then we have a secondary home market. And so for me to just, or anyone really, I think it's a disservice to just blanket statement and be like, hey, Alan, the market's like fantastic. Hey, Alan, the market's
Yeah.
like terrible. I think it's really more important to consider, like, I talked to a gentleman today. I'm like, he's like, what's going on in the real estate market? I say, okay, are we talking about a single family home or are we talking about condos? He's like, well, I'm talking about condos. I said, okay, great. Are we talking about something that's by the water or are we talking about something that's like more inland? And so, yes, I could give you some overall like things. The condominium market in general has seen incredible downward pressure on the pricing. There's a lot of reasons why. So, number one, we unfortunately, not here, but on the other coast of Florida, unfortunately, a building did collapse a couple of years ago. And that was very tragic. That then caused, kind of like an avalanche. And that's probably a terrible word to use, but of additional requirements that needed to be met. Fortunately, our building codes have always been very strict here in Collier County. And so we found more often than not, there haven't been as many issues. But now all of these associations, there were a lot of unknowns. So they didn't know what they were going to have to do as far as, were they going to have what's called a milestone inspection? Are there any repairs that were going to be required? And then the other big thing was like reserves. Do we have enough reserves? And if we have enough reserves, are they in all the categories that we need to have them?
Yeah.
And then you add that in with, our market tends to be pretty much a cash market, but you add in the uncertainty with the rates, where that tends to be more often than not a secondary problem for us, where somebody might be selling up north or, everywhere's up north to us. So it could be out west or somewhere too. But
I was thinking,
it could be out west. We're so far down. It's like, everything's north. We jokingly say you have to go north to get to the south from here.
That's cute.
But we've had all these things like just really putting pressure on the condominium market. Fortunately, the great news is for our sellers and, for the buyers, we had some really good legislation pass and it went into effect on July 1. That's taking some of this pressure off some of these associations, especially, if you're looking to buy a condo for, $200,000, which you can easily do here, but your fees are like way up here, that's not going to work.
And special assessment and
so they passed some great legislation where they don't have to fill everything up as quickly. And on top of that, they were going to make some money available so that they could do some low interest or no interest loans so that these associations could kind of have some mobility there to get things kind of back on track. So the great news is we're seeing some really positive movement in the condominium market. We're excited about that. We have this little thing here in Florida, and over here on this coast called hurricanes. That is, no one buys in Florida not knowing that we have hurricanes. So that tends to impact our market. Very unfortunately, we had a pretty significant hurricane back in 2022, which caused a lot of flooding. We had not had a flooding. We've had wind event hurricanes. I've been here through many, many hurricanes, having lived here. We've had many wind event ones, but we had not had a flooding one in over 60 years. So that was really impactful because water damage is very different than wind damage.
Oh, definitely. And I think a lot of people think of Florida as always flooding because of hurricanes, and just like a lot of people think of California as always shaking because of the earthquakes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you have these you think okay, there's always earthquakes happening in California, and and then of course the fires in Northern California, and then sadly down in Southern California too. But
yeah,
so you think those oh my gosh, this hits all the time. But in fair, when you're not from that state, the geography, it's all just one big blob. It's we're here and something could happen over here, and it's not really impactful. But the huge positive I will tell you that came out of this was a lot of the infrastructure needed rebuilding. And so now you have we have more cell phone towers. We have, better power grid things. They make some improvements, which is, I guess, a silver lining when you look at some of these things. And then we had a couple other hurricanes last year. They weren't major, but the water tables, and when they hit at king tide. So king tide is your highest tide, the highest tide. And so if your water levels are already high and then you have more water coming in. So then those did cause some flooding, not nearly the flooding that we had had at all, like with Hurricane Ian, but though we had Hurricane Helene and then Hurricane Milton, and they were in a very, very short window of time. So you also didn't have the absorption time. The water didn't have a chance to absorb. So
Yeah.
when the second hurricane then came through in a short period, that put a lot of stress on our condominiums, on the water. And I know that's kind of a lot to say, but the good news is we've just seen a lot of positive things happening here. And we've seen some really great, like I said, legislation and some other infrastructure things happening that's made a big, big change. As for a single family home in the market, that's really easy. Single family homes are doing really, really well as long as you are priced with our market. We are in a normal market. People want to, you watch the news media and they're telling you, oh, it's down, it's down, it's down. If you study our data and you study our market cycles, we
Yeah.
are in a normal market cycle. And then you have this one like crazy blip of COVID. If you take that out, everything else about our market is reacting the way we would expect our market to react. And I think that's just important for people to understand.
I think we need to cut this part out and keep replaying it so that people hear it. So,
Yeah, it's a challenge. What we're seeing in our market is a lot of price changes. And I recently learned 60% of the realtors in the United States, 60% of the realtors were licensed after 2012, which means 60% of the realtors in the United States have never experienced a down market.
yeah.
And that's making a lot of this challenging because they don't know how to price in a down market. They don't know how, to get ahead in exactly the skill set that you need to have. And so that's just, there's all these like little nuances that are impacting and making a little bit of a change.
And houses are sitting on the market longer unless it's priced right and it doesn't have a quirk. I find that they move quickly here, especially here. But if they have just the slightest quirk, they sit a little bit longer. They do sell, but they sit a little bit longer. And so we're running into similar where the condo market has slowed down. The single family home market is moving. And you're right, as far as when people started real estate in a downward, I started in the middle of 2007. And you know what happened in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't know any different.
Right.
And so I just worked through it and now we're here. And
Yeah.
so it's like, wait a minute, it was worse then.
It was way worse then. But I will say that some of the conversation is very similar because
Mhm.
it's just really helping people understand the reality and having those tough conversations. And we are uniquely positioned, like the agents who have been around, to have those direct conversations. And maybe you could say they're confrontational, but I don't even know that it's confrontation. They're uncomfortable. Like, I was with a client and they were listed for $1,599,000, and I'm looking at all of the data and everything about it, and I'm like, you should be at $1,299,000.
Yeah,
I didn't like having to tell her that. She certainly didn't like hearing that. But that's the reality. Rather than just try to get the listing and then just beat them up, beat them up, beat them up.
exactly.
And that's why we're seeing in our market 3 price reductions per every listing that's coming on the market because they're just too incremental and they're not really getting the job done.
Exactly. We saw a property that was listed for 3.1. They bought it in 2021 for 2.1. It has not gone up $1 million. They had done nothing to the property. So then they lowered it to 2,995. We wrote an offer for 2.5 because I could show that it's gone up about 2.6% every year, but now it's down 1.3%. So 2.5, 2.6 is the height. Seller won't sell for less than 2.8. And I said, it's not there. And unreasonable seller. I was representing the buy side, not the sell side. And the agent said, we're just going to let it sit. He doesn't have to sell. And I said, I get you don't have to, but do you want to? There's a
Yeah,
difference.
and you took the time to put your home on the market, and you're going through
Yes.
all of this. And you have to, I think, there's this balance of really, truly, the only 2 things that really matter are motivation and timing. And that's for the buyers and for the sellers. What
Yeah.
is their real true motivation? And, for agents like yourself and for me, I'm okay saying no. I'm okay saying, like, I'm not your
Yes.
gal. Call me in 2 agents after it hasn't sold. I'm ever tell you my favorite thing. Your best positioning is to be the firstborn, the second wife, and the third realtor.
I love that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I love being your third realtor.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What are some of the common challenges or pitfalls that people face when relocating or purchasing in Collier County? And how do you help them navigate through these?
One of the biggest things that I see, and it's just so common, and so I really try to make people feel really good about it. They're coming from a different area, and I in our market, you're relocating to a different area. So our homes, just even the floor plans, are not the same as what you're going to find in the Midwest. They're not the same as what you're going to find in the Northeast. And so it's understanding a lot of times, as I have mentioned, outdoor life is a big deal. So for us, a lanai is your outdoor living space, whether it's screen enclosed or open. But your lanai is additional living space, even though it's not considered square footage by any means. It's, sometimes it could be under your total square footage, because if it's under truss, then you would have some that would be under your total square footage. But that outdoor living space is so huge. And I think that's one of the biggest understandings for people. It's like, okay, I want 3 bedrooms plus a den, 3 bathrooms, and it's got to be 2,500 square feet. Okay, but what if it was 2,100 and you had a big, beautiful lanai space and you have this pool area, and just understanding that. And so that always takes like a little bit of just a little bit of a guidance period where we can help people to see what it is that we have available and understanding what our market has to offer. We also have villa style homes. So that's a single family home. And, if it's a detached villa, it's a single family home, but it's a 0 lot line. And in many cases, all the exterior, your landscaping and things like that are going to be included in your association fees. So people tend to love that, especially if they're not going to be here full time, but they don't really necessarily have that up north. And then we would call like an attached villa. That's what they call a duplex up north, so you have one shared wall. We have some townhomes. We don't have a lot of townhome living. A lot of our stuff here, the premiums are going to go to single level living. So people love that. Or if there's a second story and it's a high-end home, having an elevator, people like to have that. Or I always say your best positioning is if you're in a multi-story home, you want to have your primary and an additional guest suite on that first floor. So if you do have some older people or people that just can't deal with stairs, you've got all your living in one, easy spot. The other thing I always ask people, the number one question I ask them is, so how do you see yourself living when you're here? Because most of the
And
time,
that's a good question.
it's a
Yeah.
lifestyle purchase. How are you going to spend your time? Do you want to be shopping? Do you want to be close to the beach? Do you want to be on the golf course? Do you want to be close to restaurants? Like, how do you see yourself? Because most people, when I'm helping them, this is truly not only a luxury purchase, but this is something that they have. This is a goal. This is a
See,
goal. This is a dream coming into reality. And it's the coolest thing to help achieve that for someone. But they're not worried about the kids' commute to school. They're not worried about their job commute. They're not, you aren't worried about all those things. It's
yeah.
purely a luxury purchase. And no matter what the price point is, it's a luxury purchase because it's the luxury of your time that you've earned.
Shoot, maybe I'm going to come and work with you.
Come on. I'd love it. I'd love it.
We've talked a little bit about the weather, and we've talked beautiful weather, minor hurricanes, etc. And talking about the climate, how is the business and economic climate in Collier County?
So that's great to ask. I mean, tourism's obviously huge here. We also have healthcare. You can find some of the best doctors in the United States here. Healthcare, because people used to always say, like, oh, you can't get a good doctor. Well, when all the people come here with all their money, things tend to follow. We have like every bank you can possibly imagine. It's like, oh, we don't want to lose our number one guy. Let's open a branch in Naples.
That's
So,
great.
we also have some really cool industries here, along with the healthcare. One of the biggest firms that we have here is Arthrex, and they create medical devices, and they have this whole amazing campus where they do teaching, and they will bring doctors in, and they will do all sorts of continuing education and training, and then development, and they are inventing things. And it's a really neat business. They have a very large campus, very central in North Naples, and then they have additional space even further out in the county. Hertz Rent-A-Car, they brought their headquarters down to Estero as well. So that's just north of us in Lee County. We've seen a lot of healthcare. We've seen several like the healthcare conglomerates, like some of their main offices, some of those have come down here in the past before as well. Education is big here as well too. The under 18 numbers in our county is continuing to grow. And if you look at our census data for Collier County, our average age actually goes down.
Oh, wow.
So it's,
See,
we're
another
bringing
reason to
the
move
average
there,
age down.
another
Say that
reason to
again.
move there, you'll be younger.
Yeah, you will be younger. You will be younger. I used to, for the longest time, I was like, ooh, I don't really want all these like young people to know. I don't want to spoil the secret.
In what ways do you as a real estate agent provide value to someone relocating from another region or state? And how do you differentiate yourself from other real estate agents in Collier County?
So one of the things that I really like to do is I do know a lot about living here, having lived here for as long as I have. I also have been involved with our Chamber of Commerce. It's called Leadership Collier, where you get to learn all about the county. And so one of the things that I use to really differentiate is I do a very detailed consultation with a buyer. And a big part of that is literally if we're in person, and I love to be in person because I will pull out an actual paper map. I know I sound like I'm 90, but I will give them just kind of like a lay of the land. And when we do end up going out to look at homes, nothing wrong with like just kind of like trying to get to know somebody and asking them about them. But I really spend my time I'm like, hey, this is over here. Like, oh, you like restaurants? Okay, this kind of food you can find here. Oh, you like to spend your time doing this? Okay, you're going to find that here. And so I really want people to get an idea of what it's like to live here. And so I tailored my time with them to really be about, again, what's important to them and how they would like to spend their time. And I think that's made such a huge difference. When somebody's here, they get a really good feel for life here.
And that's how it should be. One of the things I'm amazed at is that you can find a map. I mean, a paper map, not one on
Yeah.
not one on
And
your phone.
and if they're not here, I actually will mail them a map. And then one of the other really cool things, we have a lot of, gated communities. And so we have these maps that will have like every street in the community and then every lot. And so, lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
And then even on the condominiums on the beach, it'll say like, okay, if this is the building, like unit 1 is going to be here, 2's here, 3, 4, 5. So you can see what your view is going to be and what your exposure will be. And so if I know they're interested in a specific community or neighborhood, I sell a lot of homes in Gray Oaks. It's a gated golf course community, tennis. It's phenomenal. They have 3 golf courses. I call it the adult playground. It's so fun. But a lot of times people want a specific view or they want, a location. And so I'll make sure that they have that map. And if I'm not meeting them in person, if we're doing something virtual like this, I'll just mail them everything so that they can have it. And that way I had such a terrible experience. I was buying a property with my husband a few years back. Number one, and this was out of state. And I think that's really important to understand. And it was a great exercise for me to go through. We were buying a property out of state. We really didn't know the area. We just had visited and we fell in love and we're like, we want to have a home here. Like, this is fabulous. We're driving around and we're seeing these properties and there's signs and I'm calling. Nobody's answering. I'm leaving messages. Nobody's calling me back. Finally, I was referred to someone and I said to them, I said, listen, I'm just not familiar with this area. And, so if you could send me some things, but tell me, like, here's the things that we're interested in. This is what we like. I need some guidance. Like, don't just send me an MLS list of properties. Well, lo and behold, I literally get a link to their MLS with like 30 properties.
Oh,
I don't know anything from anything. And I'm
you're
like,
just
well,
left to
this
your own
is
devices. Yeah,
right. And
not good.
so I just have to say, I really learned from that experience. And so I will tell you, sometimes I am not the fastest, but I'm going to be really thorough. And so if you and I have a consultation, I'm going to sit and number one, I'm going to think. I'm going to really use like what I know about the areas and what you've told me and what you asked me. And then sometimes what you haven't said. And I just kind of put it all together. And then when I send the properties, I'll put like a little bit of a note in there. And on each and every single one that I'm sending. So I might say, okay, this has this view, or this is in this kind of neighborhood with this, or whatever, because that was such a great learning lesson for me to learn. Oh my gosh, is that how what I'm doing? Like, am I just like, people are like, oh, I have no idea what this even means. Like, they really truly need an advisor and a professional. And I think that sets you apart tremendously.
And that really does. I can't tell you how many people are just like the latter, where non-responsive, only text, just put you in the MLS and you have no idea about the neighborhoods, the alcoves, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely that sets you apart. It's good knowledge. It shows it. Where do you think most of your buyers are coming from?
So traditionally, we were founded by Kentucky fishermen from Kentucky, and
Oh,
so
really?
traditionally, I-75 comes down the west coast of Florida. So literally, people like living off of I-75 in the Midwest would always traditionally come here to Naples. And people from the Northeast would come down I-95 and they would go over to Boca, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Like literally, like that's just, well, because it was our
That's where they
interstate, we're
stop.
not going to
They
cross
follow the
over.
road.
And so that was like really what it always was traditionally. And then actually, we would get a lot of people, believe it or not, relocating to Naples from the Miami area and Fort Lauderdale. They wanted less traffic. And on our holiday weekends, people will vacation over here. And people from the other coast of Florida sometimes will get like a little condo or a smaller place here to vacation here. But now, really, I mean, we see strong pulls from the Midwest, Ohio, Minneapolis, I would call it Chicagoland, but really anywhere in Illinois, especially in the outskirts and especially in a lot of the higher end areas. We also have a huge pull from the Boston area because we have the Red Sox baseball team comes down to Lee County, which is just north of us. So then there's that huge pull there for that. And then we've always had a lot of people from New York, but like upstate New York, more like a Westchester County, the outside of New York City. But post COVID, we're starting to really just see a lot of those big cities that are having people that move here. California, literally before COVID, two people in my entire career, I had two people from
Wow.
California. It just was not a thing. It was not a thing at all. And then during COVID, it was like one or two a week. And not just like, oh, Alan, you're going to move here. No, you're going to move here, plus your parents, plus your friends. And it was like literally entire subsets
Wow.
relocating here. But we tend to see like tri-state area out of the Northeast, still considerably here. New York, New Jersey, like we see some of that now. And then, like I said, Boston, anything Midwest is good here.
It's not surprising that the Californians, it took us a little while. Now knowing what you have,
Oh my gosh,
you
they would
want
come
it.
here and they'd be like, wait, I get a house on a quarter acre. It has a 2-car garage. It has a pool. And then like the price, I'm like, well, this is cheap. How much over asking do I offer? I'm like, that's not really how negotiations work, but
We're so used to that here. And then they don't get it. And they're like, oh.
I know. But it really, truly, people started to see the value of what they could get here. And I think in a lot of ways, our market is not a cheap market
Yeah.
by any means. But when you were talking, like we just always have Midwest people and you have Midwest money. And that is different we always had a lot of millionaires here. And what's changed now is now that we've started to get some of that billionaire money. And that is like such a huge difference. And it's very different for us, like, and for us living here, like it's just different.
Yeah.
So we've seen a different shift in the
It's a,
wealth.
it is. It's a different shift in the wealth. It's a
Mhm.
different mentality, different expectations than so. How do you see Collier County evolving in the next few years, and what impact might that have on new residents?
So we've had significant evolution here and a lot of development. Again, one of the like, residual effects of having the hurricanes is we actually had several buildings where the associations voted. They received offers and they voted and they actually sold. And so now we've seen several of our older buildings, they've come down. We're seeing new developments come up. We have the Four Seasons opening very soon, where it used to be the Naples Beach and Golf Hotel. And they're still like sort of involved a little bit, but the Four Seasons is opening there. And then literally right down the road from it, within I think it's a half mile, but it might be just a little bit over that, is the Rosewood Residences. Now that's not going to have a hotel attached. And I should mention that's one very, very unique thing. Our zoning here is incredibly strict. Our beach is residential. We have on the beach in the city of Naples, we'll have the Four Seasons that sits on the beach. And then we have the Edgewater Beach Hotel that sits on the beach. And then at the north end of the city, we have the Naples Grand. It's not on the beach because we actually have some inland waters and some mangroves. So it actually sits back, but then there's a boardwalk to get to the beach. But our beach is not dotted with commercial properties. And then going further north, we have the Ritz-Carlton on the beach. We have the Turtle Club, and we have La Playa. Those are all additional like hotels. And we actually have two Ritz-Carltons, one on the beach and one at a golf course. They're 2 miles apart.
Well, I cannot wait to come and stay. So,
You need to come stay, come for a visit.
how do you think technology and online resources have impacted the way people are approaching real estate and relocating?
People are starting sooner. They're definitely starting their search sooner and just trying to like get an idea. They're looking, and I think it's a great thing. I think it's given people some spectacular access, just to kind of get an idea and get a feel. So I do appreciate that. It Sometimes I will say that the negative or downfall of it is people think they want, especially like for buyers, and this has happened, I can't even count how many times this happens. Like they look online and they think that they want this whole list of homes. But I've had this consultation with them and I know the neighborhoods that they want, and I know like the area, or maybe there might be something specific, for them. In one case, I had someone that needed to be within, a certain time frame to both of our hospitals, north and south. And there's literally one small little pocket that I can put them in to make it so that, if there's no traffic, it's no big deal. But if there's traffic, there's only like this one small pocket I can put them in. But it just kind of like took them coming here and seeing. Sometimes, you have to see, okay, this is what you said you wanted to see. Let's go take a look at that. And then, okay, now this is what you said you really ultimately want to have. Let's go take a look at that. And then how does that, come together or not?
It will, with the guidance of an experienced realtor such as yourself. So, this was not one of the questions, but I'm going to ask it, and hopefully you'll have a good one. Do you have a favorite realtor story that you'd care to share?
I had these clients, they were actually referred to me to a young gentleman. He and I randomly met out one evening. I was out with friends, he was out with friends, and someone in the friend group knew one another. We get to chatting and he starts telling me how he's trying to either buy a place or sell a place. I honestly, I don't remember. I never even tried to put myself or insert myself in there. I was like, oh, that's just so great for you, and whatever. And long story short, he was so impressed by the fact that I wasn't like, let me oh, I'm a realtor. Come on. He ended up referring his parents' best friends to me to help them buy a home. And I got to know them. And they had been coming down here and they were staying at the Ritz-Carlton on the beach. They'd been coming for 10 years. And every
Wow.
time they came down, they would walk the beach, they'd look at the condos and the homes, and they'd like look, and they just, that was their dream. And when they told me what they were looking to spend, their budget, we went out, we looked at what they were looking to spend, and we just really couldn't find exactly that match, we couldn't quite find it. It was a very exciting time for them. He was retiring after an incredible career, a long career, very successful career. And they were going to take a month and go to Australia and New Zealand. And I just said, okay, I'm going to just kind of keep an eye. And if something should come up, I'm going to let you know about it, Lo and behold, this property comes on the market. We've always had a bit of like a remote selling, and where we're taking like some kind of like video. I mean, 23 years ago, we were, taking photos and FedEx overnighting them to people. So here they are in Australia. I go look at this property and I took some videos of it, and I was able to, I upload it and I send it, to them so they could take a look at it. We decided to make an offer sight unseen. And this was not just a little bit over their budget. It was like double the top end.
Wow.
But I knew it was like everything that they wanted. And I don't push people over their budget. So I don't want people to walk away thinking like, oh, she's going to make me spend. No, I don't push people over their budget at all.
But every once in a while it happens.
But again, I could hear what they weren't saying.
Yeah.
And I could hear the dream. And he kept going back to this. I just like what he really wanted. And like, he'd worked so hard. And for 10 years, he's like looking at this. And here it is. And we were able to get it under contract and get them that property while they were on this celebration trip for his retirement. We were able to find them their celebration property here in Naples. And that just, to me, that one's always like stuck with me. And it wasn't even necessarily about the price point. I mean, it was a big sale and that was amazing, but it was really more about seeing that come true for them. That was special.
And for me, that is a definite, always a joy in my career. Every transaction, when I could make the dreams possible. And it's a good feeling. And the clients feel it as well. So, and that's what sets you out apart, which is terrific.
And I mean, and what we do is not always a happy ending. I mean, I can't even count how many sales I've had that, they bought their dream home and someone fell ill or passed away and now they don't even get to enjoy it. And we've got to sell it. And we accomplished the goal of getting it sold, but it's not like, yay. It's like, I'm glad you're able to close this door and move on from this chapter, and it's just a different feeling.
I always say at the bottom of our business cards, when you look really, really close at the fine print, it's therapist, mind reader. Yes.
Well, we're the first to know a lot of things and big things in people's lives. Many times before even people in their family or their significant others know. I mean, it can be very interesting and awkward.